The Minute Paper, a classroom assessment technique created by Professor Charles Schwartz in the early 1980s and popularized by Angelo and Cross in their well-known book, Classroom Assessment Techniques, a handbook for college teachers. The Minute Paper is simply that, a 60-second period at the end of the section of work for students to write down on paper their anonymous responses to instructor-posed questions, prompting students to reflect on the day's lesson. Responses are reviewed by the instructor afterwards to get a sense of what the students have learned, where the gaps in understanding are, and what aspects of teaching the students are responding to. The function of this assessment is to solely get a dipstick measurement which can be responded to in the next session, by email or by Blackboard. Examples of prompts given to students for their minute paper should be: what was the most important or significant thing you learned in this session? What questions do you have about the material covered in our session? Which concept is giving you the most trouble? What question did I ask students today that helped you the most or the least? And what examples did I use today that helped you the most or the least? Yes or no responses don't help you much, so it's a good idea to word the question so it elicits as much detail from the students as possible. The reason why I chose to reflect on the minute paper is because at the end of the dental assisting program, prior to becoming certified, students are required to write a national board exam. As an instructor, it is so important for me to make sure that all students are understanding the content. If they are not, they run the risk of being unsuccessful with their board exam. Ensuring that none of my students are confused and are given opportunities to iron out any kinks is imperative. Alternatively, hearing about the success students are having to any aspects of my instruction is also very important for me to understand. It is an opportunity for me to assess my students as a whole and for them to assess me as their instructor. The minute paper does have many advantages. It can assess students learning quickly and effectively. It provides a manageable amount of time and useful feedback on whether the instructor's main idea and what the students perceived are in alignment. The minute paper is a very adaptive and flexible tool, as the proposed questions can be modified to each individual topic or lesson. When used too often, though, students can become apathetic to the minute paper. It may also be difficult to develop clear questions that are simple to answer in a short amount of time. Instructors can have difficulty responding to all questions asked by their students and may also struggle to respond in a timely manner. The minute paper is typically used for lecture or discussion sessions with large class sizes. They can, however, be adapted to other settings, such as assessing what students have learned in a lab or clinic. The minute paper is best used in courses that regularly present students with a large amount of information and should be used at either the beginning or end of a session, acting as a warm-up or review activity prior to an exam. Ideally, feedback should be provided to students within 24 to 48 hours of reading their minute paper responses, as students are keen to hear your feedback, and as time passes, their interest to feedback wanes as well as their recollection of the topics covered. When preparing to give students feedback, organize a T-chart and write on the whiteboard in the classroom. Organize consistent feedback from at least 2 to 3 students, and when reading positive feedback, put it under the title Points to Celebrate. When reading any potential weaknesses, organize it under the heading Things to Improve. Discuss the findings with the class the following session. Take the feedback for potential weaknesses and make a plan for ways to improve future instruction. If you are choosing to use the minute paper, there are some best practices to follow. Be clear about what specific content you want to focus on. Be prepared to revise your teaching methods or lesson plan if there is a general consensus among the students that they are not understanding the course content the way it is being taught. Be sure to be clear in your instructions to students before completing their minute papers, such as how much time will they have to complete it, what kind of answers are you looking for, and when to expect your feedback. Sometimes responding to minute papers can take some time. Be forthcoming with students that you may not be able to respond to all questions submitted. It is best to caution students that though you hope to provide feedback to most of the questions and points brought up, that you will likely be focusing on the 3 most consistently raised concerns. Going forward, I will be using this method at the beginning of a section of new content to assess the student's understanding, and at the end of the section prior to an exam to ensure that students have time to have their concerns addressed and clarified before they are tested on the content. This will bridge the gap between what we knew going into the course and what we know today. The minute paper need not always be in a question and answer format. To keep things interesting, the format could be changed to a quick crossword with clues pertaining to the concepts, or identifying from a list of words the concepts that were introduced for the day. The minute paper can also be a jumbled puzzle requiring the students to put together the concepts in the right order. These ideas are mainly to keep students interested in their responses, while still giving us feedback on what they understand. I hope this helps you in your future instruction.